let's head over to the W, where Paige Bueckers was front page news this morning because of what she did last night.
In a sport already buzzing with excitement over record-breaking performances and rising superstars, one bold statement has lit the fuse on a fiery debate. Paige Bueckers, the UConn sensation and former National Player of the Year,
5 in the half. Bueckers with the steal. With 2, with 1, lets it fly. Got it!
openly declared that she's better than Caitlin Clark. Many WNBA veterans called it pure confidence. Others saw it as disrespect toward Clark. But was Bueckers simply speaking with confidence, or was she throwing shade at the future face of women's basketball? Join us as we uncover Paige Bueckers' surprising pronouncement. The myth of Paige Bueckers. The Women's National Basketball Association has been pushing hard to create its next big superstar, but that carefully built image was torn apart under the bright lights of national television. Paige Bueckers, who was advertised as the next Caitlin Clark, the chosen one, the supposed heir to Clark's throne, walked straight into a harsh reality check. And that reality came in the form of the Seattle Storm, whose defense did not just challenge her, it dismantled her. What unfolded was not a small setback or a simple wake-up call. It was a complete demolition of the Paige Bueckers myth. For months, sports outlets, commentators, and entire media networks had been feeding audiences the same storyline. Paige Bueckers was destined to carry women's basketball forward after Caitlin Clark. Articles and broadcasts painted her as the savior of the league.
So good at keeping her dribble.
Oh my goodness!
Unreal.
The rising star who would not only match Clark's brilliance, but perhaps surpass it. She was described as smooth, efficient, intelligent on the court, and far beyond her years. The numbers seemed to back it up.
Off the screen, has it taken away. Just a second turnover for Clark as Bueckers snatched that one. Bueckers through the contact for the bucket in the foul.
She became the fastest player in league history to reach 200 points and 50 assists, achieving the mark in just 11 games, one game faster than Clark herself.
Indiana's lost double digits, second half lead, 3 in the last.
Come on, Paige!
That statistic alone generated headlines across both mainstream and conservative sports outlets. ESPN ranked her 13th in their mid-season player rankings. Every step seemed to confirm the coronation was underway. Then came August 22, 2025, the night everything changed. Only days earlier, Bueckers had delivered a historic scoring performance against the Los Angeles Sparks. She dropped 44 points while shooting an unbelievable 80% from the field.
Off the flex cut is Bueckers. And that's a new career high for the rookie out of UConn.
Analysts and fans alike praised her. Scoring 44 points in a professional game is already rare, but to do it with such incredible efficiency looked like the mark of greatness. It was the type of game that fueled the narrative, the kind of performance that convinced many that the media's story about her was becoming reality. But basketball does not crown champions based on a single night. What matters most is consistency against the league's best, and when Bueckers stepped onto the court against the Seattle Storm, the hype train collided with the cold wall of reality. Seattle did not let her play freely. They treated her the same way teams treat Caitlin Clark, with double teams, suffocating defense, and relentless pressure. Suddenly, the smoothness disappeared. The freedom was gone. She could not dictate the game at her own pace. Every movement was challenged, every possession contested. The result was disastrous. Against the Storm, Paige Bueckers managed only 11 points. This was not 11 in the first quarter, nor in the first half. This was 11 for the entire game. Her shooting collapsed to a shocking 2 for 11 from the field. She recorded 0 assists and only 2 rebounds. The stat sheet told a brutal story, not of a superstar, but of a player completely neutralized, struggling to find her footing when faced with true championship-level defense. What made the contrast even sharper was the timing. Though she was celebrated days earlier for her explosion against Los Angeles, that game was treated like her crowning achievement, her entrance into the superstar tier. Yet in Seattle, the very next performance revealed cracks in the carefully crafted image. Will Bueckers be able to maintain her image of dominance against Seattle? Let's find out. Seattle's defensive storm. The defensive strategy of the Seattle Storm was laid out before the game with remarkable clarity. Their defensive coordinator, Noah Quinn, explained the plan in plain terms. After Paige Bueckers had erupted for 44 points in her previous game, scoring in a wide variety of ways, it was time to see whether she could handle what has become known as the Caitlin Clark treatment. The answer, as the night unfolded, was undeniable. She could not. Quinn had emphasized before the contest that the key to stopping Bueckers would be relentless physicality. From the very first possession, Seattle made it their mission to test her toughness and composure. Their defenders stayed tight on her space, forced her into difficult decisions, and attacked her favorite actions with aggression. Slim, one of the Storm's key defenders, set the tone by pressuring her at every turn, never giving her the freedom she enjoyed against Los Angeles. Multiple bodies rotated onto her, closing off passing lanes, showing traps at the screen, and cutting away the angles she usually thrived in. The message was clear. Paige Bueckers was going to have to earn every inch of the floor. The comparison between the two players is striking. Caitlin Clark, the player who has already reshaped the entire women's game, has been subjected to punishment that borders on brutality. In the 2024 WNBA season, an astonishing 17% of all flagrant fouls across the league were committed against Clark alone. That is not mere defense, it is organized targeting, more akin to NFL linebackers delivering hits than traditional basketball play. Even more staggering, the Chicago Sky by themselves accounted for nearly 80% of those flagrant fouls, making Clark the constant bullseye of the league's most aggressive tactics. Paige Bueckers, in contrast, had been enjoying far lighter treatment. Through her early games, she drifted with ease, almost as if she were still competing in a college exhibition, untouched by the kind of physical resistance Clark absorbs every single night. But once the Storm subjected her to that same intensity, she collapsed. Doubled on pick and rolls, blitzed out of her comfort spots, and relentlessly contested, her once confident game evaporated. Rather than attacking or adjusting, she simply passed the ball away under pressure. By the time the game tilted out of reach, Bueckers had managed only 7 shot attempts in total, a shockingly low figure for a player heralded as the next great star. The media had long been quick to praise her efficiency, pointing to her 47.4% shooting percentage from the field as superior to Caitlin Clark's rookie mark of 41.7%. For many, these numbers served as proof that Bueckers was more polished, more prepared, and more effective at the professional level. But what was consistently overlooked was the context. Bueckers had been thriving against defenses that afforded her space, respect, and minimal contact. Clark, by contrast, has built her rookie campaign while enduring levels of punishment and defensive targeting that most players would never withstand. When Bueckers finally faced the Storm, the Seattle defense revealed the truth. Numbers without context can be misleading, and only when tested under relentless pressure does a player's true resilience shine through. Does Clark have an edge over Bueckers? Let's take a closer look. Clark's advantage over Paige. Caitlin Clark has been taking the most difficult shots in the entire league, often while being defended as if every opponent had been instructed to treat her like a target. Her baskets are earned under suffocating pressure, with defenders throwing themselves at her from every angle. Testing not only her skill, but also her endurance and toughness. By contrast, Paige Bueckers' impressive shooting percentages were built on something far less demanding: softer defenses, cleaner looks at the basket, and a general lack of resistance from opponents who had not yet decided to challenge her as if she were a true superstar. The illusion of effortless scoring shattered the instant the Seattle Storm changed their approach and treated her with the same aggressive attention Clark has endured for years. Her efficiency collapsed dramatically, like a fragile house of cards caught in a raging tornado. The numbers tell the story clearly. 2 made field goals in 11 attempts. That is not efficiency, it is exposure, a harsh spotlight revealing the gap between myth and reality. On August 22, 2025, Paige Bueckers received her first true taste of what Clark has faced every single night since her college days. A full-court defensive blitz. Pressure applied 94 feet from the basket, with opponents swarming her before she even had the chance to dribble across half-court. Under that relentless assault, her composure cracked. Her frustration was visible, her confidence shaken. She looked overwhelmed, nearly on the verge of breaking down on the floor. The media and her supporters have long insisted that Bueckers is the league's next great star, the supposed face of the WNBA. They have painted her as superior to Clark, more cerebral, more fundamentally sound, and even more historically significant after she shattered Clark's college records with apparent ease. Some analysts were ready to crown her as the league's future leader after only half a season. But when reality struck, when true defensive pressure arrived, she was unprepared. For one night, she was asked to carry the same weight Clark carries every game, and she crumbled under the pressure. The statistical evidence is just as telling. In the 2024 WNBA season, there were 35 player fouls called across the league. Out of that total, Caitlin Clark alone absorbed most of those fouls, nearly 1 out of every 5 across the entire season. This is an astonishing figure, especially when compared to how Bueckers has been treated by defenders this year. Clark has been slammed, pushed, and dragged into confrontations that have at times resembled mixed martial arts fights more than basketball games. The level of aggression and hostility directed at her has been unprecedented. By comparison, no team has played defense against Bueckers with the same intensity, nor have they targeted her with the same unnecessary fouls and borderline assaults. The difference in treatment is glaring. Clark has endured battles that would have broken lesser players, yet she continues to stand as one of the most resilient competitors in the sport. Bueckers, however, when finally subjected to even a single game of Clark-level treatment, faltered. The next Caitlin Clark turned into nothing more than the next player headed to the bench. The verdict is unavoidable. Paige Bueckers may be talented, but she has not proven she is built for the unforgiving spotlight that Caitlin Clark has lived under since her first professional game. Clark's legacy is already being carved in stone, not because she is protected, but because she has survived and triumphed in the most hostile conditions women's basketball has ever seen. Since we're talking about made-up stories, what evidence is there to back it up? Let's look at some real numbers that end this debate. Clark's reality. Caitlin Clark's rookie season was unlike anything the WNBA had ever seen. She averaged 19.0 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game, while being the single most targeted player in the entire league. Every night, she was the focus of defensive game plans, constantly hunted, pushed, and fouled. Paige Bueckers, on the other hand, averaged 19.7 points, 5.3 assists, and 4.1 rebounds during her rookie campaign, but she did so under conditions that were the complete opposite. She enjoyed the softest defensive treatment that any star rookie could ask for. Clark achieved her numbers while enduring flagrant fouls at twice the rate of any other player. Opposing coaches openly instructed their teams to be physical with her, to wear her down and to rough her up as the centerpiece of their defensive strategies. Even her own coach admitted that the way she was being played against often crossed the line into the unacceptable. Meanwhile, Bueckers spent most of her first season facing defenders who treated her like fragile glass, giving her room to breathe and respecting her shot rather than testing her toughness. That protection ended the moment one team decided to guard her like the superstar she was advertised to be. When the Seattle Storm turned up the intensity, Bueckers completely disappeared. She finished the game with only 11 points, 0 assists, and a shocking -17 plus-minus while on the floor. 0 assists, none at all. For a player who had been hyped as being on the same level, or even better than Caitlin Clark, that was a devastating collapse. The Storm's game plan was merciless and brilliantly executed. Defensive coordinator Noah Quinn laid out the blueprint with precision. It was not enough to rely on a single primary defender. Stopping Paige required a full commitment from the entire defense, a layered system where the first, second, and third lines of defense all had to rotate and close in on her actions. Brittany Sykes handled the main assignment, with relentless support from Skylar Diggins, Gabby Williams, and Erica Wheeler. Together, they contested every possession, challenged every shot, and erased the easy looks that had fueled Buecker's reputation throughout the season. Seattle's strategy worked to perfection. They forced her to labor for every dribble, every movement, every release, and in doing so, they revealed a harsh truth. Once stripped of the soft treatment she had been benefiting from, Paige Bueckers was unable to rise to the challenge. The Storm not only beat her, they created a defensive model for the rest of the league to follow. In contrast, Caitlin Clark has faced this exact treatment since her very first day in the league. From her debut, teams have thrown multiple defenders at her, hacked her with punishing fouls, and schemed endlessly to contain her. And yet, despite this constant warlike attention, she has continued to rewrite the record books. She never got a grace period, never got the luxury of easy games to find her rhythm, and never had excuses to fall back on. Clark was cast immediately into the fire, and instead of burning out, she proved she belonged among the greatest to ever play the game. Buecker's supporters will point to her injuries as an excuse for her uneven performances. They will bring up her torn ACL, her time away from the game, and the argument that she is still regaining her rhythm. But that only underscores the contrast between the two players. Clark had no safety net, no excuses, and no patience from anyone. She was painted as public enemy number one and forced to fight through the most physical defenses from the very start. And she thrived. Bueckers, by comparison, walked into the WNBA on a red carpet. For much of her rookie year, she was protected, guarded loosely, and allowed to shine in conditions designed to flatter her. The moment those conditions disappeared and she was treated like Clark, she crumbled. Seattle's defensive plan also showed the depth of what it takes to stop a player at the highest level. It was not just about individual matchups, but about full team execution, rotations, rebounding, and second-chance control. The Storm allowed only 12 second-chance points in the first half, despite their aggressive deflections and pressure. They balanced intensity with discipline, leaving no cracks for Bueckers to exploit. Will Paige ever step into the shoes of Caitlin Clark? Let's find out. Why Paige will never be Clark. The Paige Bueckers experiment has revealed its flaws. Despite heavy media promotion, inflated statistics, and soft defensive coverage from opponents, the Dallas Wings remain a failure. Their .928 record has already eliminated them from playoff contention, making it appear as though the franchise wasted the #1 pick on a player who was never truly built for the spotlight. By contrast, Caitlin Clark completely transformed the Indiana Fever. She took a team that had been one of the worst in the league and turned them into a major attraction. She sold out arenas, broke television viewership records, and made the WNBA relevant to casual sports fans for the first time in years. Clark did not just improve her team's win-loss record, she elevated the profile of the entire league. Bueckers, even with advantages given to her during her rookie season, has failed to win consistently. The real concern is what will happen once defenses begin to treat her the way they treat Clark every single night. If the game on August 22, 2025 is any indication, her adjustment to that level of pressure will be long and painful. On that night, her assist total was underwhelming. Clark, in the same situation, would likely have produced at least 9 or 10 assists, proving once again that she is far more than a scorer. Bueckers lacks that versatility. She is not dynamic, cannot handle constant double teams or triple teams, and when placed under real defensive pressure, she looks ordinary. Yet the media continues to push a rivalry narrative that does not exist. For months, stories were written to suggest that Bueckers was not only equal to Clark, but even superior. Efficiency percentages and shooting numbers were presented out of context, while the enormous defensive pressure Clark faced was ignored. ESPN even ranked Bueckers at number 13 in its mid-season list, while Clark earned a higher spot despite carrying a much heavier burden on the court. The narrative collapsed when Bueckers faced serious defense. One game was enough to reveal the truth. The supposed heir to Clark's throne was a media creation. The illusion was shattered on national television. The WNBA and its media partners must now face reality. There is no next Caitlin Clark. Clark is not just a star, she is a generational figure who has transformed the sport. She is to women's basketball what Tiger Woods was to golf, an athlete who transcends the game and brings it to mainstream audiences. Claims that Bueckers could save the WNBA season have proven empty. She plays in front of half-empty arenas, and the Dallas Wings rank near the bottom of the league in attendance. She is not filling seats, she is not lifting television numbers, and she is certainly not reshaping the sport. Instead, she is another talented player swept up in the media's attempt to create the next big thing. When finally tested against the same defensive pressure Clark sees every night, Bueckers could not handle it. The turning point came on a night that will be remembered as the night the hype collapsed. Bueckers received her reality check, and it was harsher than her shooting percentage against Seattle. Caitlin Clark remains the true standard of excellence, the player who not only raised her own performance, but also elevated the entire WNBA. Everyone else is competing for second place, and based on what was seen in Seattle, some players are not even close to qualifying for that. The media's agenda has been exposed, the manufactured hype has deflated, and the only real question left is whether anyone will ever reach Clark's level. So, what do you think about Paige Bueckers' shocking announcement? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.